All right, starting with Unit 2. Unit 2 is talking about the living world biodiversity. So we're starting in Chapter 3. This read here, the central case study is talking about saving Hawaii's native forest birds. It's actually pretty interesting because they deal with endemic species and whatnot. Plus, obviously, I like it because I used to live in Hawaii. Okay, so starting on page 48 here, you can see that there's actually no sticky notes because a lot of this stuff is starting to be reviewed, like a species, a particular type of organism. We should know that. Population is a group of individuals of a given species. We should know that. Evolution consists of change in the population of organisms from generation to generation. You should know that. Okay, talking about natural selection. We should know that, the basics of that. So flipping over to page 49, now I do have a sticky note for you guys to write down. So basically, I'm talking about should be review. Okay, that includes adaptations up there. A lot of this stuff should be reviewed from biology. All right, requires a great deal of time. And what I'm pointing to here is this sentence over here that talks about because such evolutionary change generally requires a great deal of time, a species cannot always adapt to environmental conditions that change quickly. Okay, for instance, the warming of our global climate today is occurring too rapidly for most species to adapt, and we may lose many species to extinction as a result. Again, we're going too quickly. The change is happening too fast. Fast environmental change can occur too quickly for organisms to adapt to. That's the issue with what we're doing today. We're making things change too quickly. And evolution, as I'm hopefully that you know, evolution takes a long, long time. Obviously, the Earth has been around for a couple billion years. We got a lot of different species on Earth that evolution has produced over those few billion years. But we're moving too fastly, so we're going to wipe a bunch of them out. Moving to page 50. Okay, adaptations become a moving target. Okay, because the environment is changing, the adaptations that you want change. Okay, become a moving target. Now we got divergent and convergent evolution. They're two different things. So let's say two different species that are unrelated to each other are put in an environment that is very, very similar to each other. Those species are going to start adapting things to get close or to adapt to that environment. So they're going to do what's called converging. Because they're put in the same environment, they're going to evolve mutations that make them more and more and more similar. On the flip side, let's say that there's organisms down here that are related to each other, put them in different ecological situations and ecological environments, they're going to start becoming more and more different from each other. So right underneath this sticky note, if I could pull the sticky note up, okay, we can talk about the birds right there. Okay, there was one bird in the beginning, but then they're starting to kind of diverge and become more different from each other. You see, they eat seeds and bark and leaf and so on. Okay, they're becoming more and more and more different from each other. Okay, these two types of cactuses are in two different places. Obviously, you can see Arizona, Canary Islands. They look really similar though. This is convergent evolution. Same environment or similar environmental conditions, they're going to start to evolve similar environment or similar adaptations to that environment. All right, page 51. Artificial selection versus natural selection. All right, artificial selection, if you don't remember from biology, that's when humans choose the characteristics. Okay, natural selection, that's simply based on the environment around it. Okay, artificial selection, think of animals, or excuse me, think of dogs. Okay, you had the wolf. Okay, somebody wanted something that was really small and hated everybody but the owner, so they made a Chihuahua. Okay, somebody wanted something that's really big but thinks it's a lap dog, so they made a Great Dane. You know, they wanted a St. Bernard, they wanted a Collie, they wanted a Golden Retriever, and so on, so on, so on. All right. Biodiversity comes from natural selection, though. Okay, so you can see Brussels sprouts and cabbage, broccoli, they all came from the same plant. Okay, but natural selection made them breed into, or made them diverge into different organisms and different crops for you guys. All right, that was page 51. All right, page 52. Okay, speciation review. Pretty straightforward. I'm going to walk through the picture over here on the right. Okay, so you start up here. You got a single population, big forest. All right, geographically isolated populations happen. So in here, you can see basically a big like lava flow happen that basically made an island of organisms there, an island of organisms there. They couldn't interact with each other, so they can't reproduce with each other. All right, this can either be a natural thing, like think of global plate tectonics separates Europe from Africa, or separates North America from South America, or separates Europe from South America, whatever it's going to be. Okay, or South America from Africa, whatever. Or it can be we've paved a big gigantic road through there for a miniature neighborhood. You know, you guys have seen over the fence. Okay, they get islands because there's a big development in between them. Okay, divergence happens, or divergent evolution, due to long-term isolation. So you can see they start to change color. They're in different environments, so they start to diverge. Okay, then when the isolated populations come together, I'm even off the picture. My bad. Okay, after a while, you can see they can't even reproduce, or they can't interact with each other. They start to diverge from each other. Okay, then after a long time, you can see some plant life is starting to kind of form there. Then they start interacting finally after a long time, but they can no longer interbreed. They're now two different species. Okay, this is speciation. All right, you started with one species, you isolated from each other, they started to evolve separately to the point where they can no longer interbreed. That's speciation. All right, 53. Talking about a phylogenetic tree. So this can be made to show how closely two species are to each other. All right, so you can talk about how closely, you know, chimpanzees are to gorillas versus chimpanzees to humans versus chimpanzees to horses or something like that. Okay, so this phylogenetic tree here, I'll zoom out so we can see it better. This phylogenetic tree here, you can see, is showing the relationship between like sharks and mammals. Like you can see just how many different divergence they need to go through. Phylogenetic trees also have little markers of where certain characteristics show up. So you can see hair creates mammals. Okay, everything after this line has 4 legs. Or everything after this has 4 legs. Moisture retaining egg for terrestrial, skull with 2 openings, and so on. Basically, it's showing how related something can be to each other. All right, that's phylogenetic trees. Again, hopefully you guys remember that from biology. All right, skipping over to 57 now. Oh, side note. Okay, taxonomy right here. Okay, domain, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. Hopefully you know that. All right, this will not be directly tested on the on the APES exam, but having this background knowledge will be really helpful, you guys. Being able to just simply rip out domain, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species, that's going to be a really good thing for you guys to know. All right, 57. Okay, 57, talking about endemic species are very susceptible to extinction. Okay, endemic species means they basically are in, you can see right here on the right-hand side, make sure it's on the screen. Species that are endemic to a region, meaning that they occur nowhere else on the planet, also face elevated risks of extinction because some event influences their region and may affect all members of their species. So, for example, let's say that there's a certain type of, there we go, I was about to say a bird in Hawaii. There we go, Hawaiian petrel. I actually used to do seabird rehabilitation with these guys. Okay, they are endemic to Hawaii. So if something happens in Hawaii to these guys, that whole species goes down. All right, or an invasive species comes in, like you can see there, the mongoose, an introduced species that preys on natives. Okay, this predator has a lot of things that the prey is not used to seeing. So that's why the predator can, or that invasive species predator can just go haywire or all over the island because there's nobody to stop them. Okay, endemic species are very susceptible to extinction. Could be a small population. They also have low genetic variation because there's not a varying degree of environments for them to live in. So there's not very many adaptations that they have created in their gene pool. All right, 58. So background extinction rate, it should be somewhere between 1 to 5 species a year. All right, should be, like I said. Okay, 6 mass extinction is because of us. So I'm pointing over towards this area over here. You can see, as we alter and destroy natural habitats, overhunt and overharvest populations, pollute air, water, and soil, introduce invasive non-native species, and alter climate, we set in motion processes that combine to threaten Earth's biodiversity. All right, right now, we're going through the sixth mass extinction event. We're doing 100 to 1,000 times higher than the background rate. Okay, so instead of 1 to 5, we're doing like 100 to 500 or 1,000 to 5,000 per year. Like we've upticked it way, 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 way higher than it should be. All right, now we're dealing with ecology and the organisms, okay? So you can see the kind of the words down there. I'm going to flip here and zoom out some so that way we can see what we're talking about. So start at the bottom. Okay, we start with an organism, an individual living thing. Know these levels. You start with an organism, then you go to a population. Okay, it's the group of the individuals. So in this case, we're dealing with all of sea turtles. Excuse me. Excuse me. Sorry. Okay, so organism, population, group of the same species here. A community is now going to be a set of populations, so different species. So now we're talking about the turtle here and the coral fish, or excuse me, the coral reef and the coral fish and the different things around. Then you zoom out a little bit more, you have the ecosystem. Okay, it's both its non-living environment and the living things. All right, now you zoom out a little bit farther, there's the landscape. Okay, you got multiple ecosystems in a landscape. You zoom out fully, you got your biosphere. So make sure you know these levels. Okay, again, you start with the organism, then the population, then the community, then the ecosystem, landscape, biosphere. Okay, for your sticky note or for your notes for 59, make sure to write those down. All right, again, ecology is how the living and the non-living are interacting. So we're talking about the things that are alive interacting with the rocks and the air and the water and so on. All right, now we're going to page 60. This is going to be our last page. Okay, zoom in a little bit here. Okay, I think we talked about this niche already, the fundamental versus realized niche. Okay, fundamental without any sort of competition, realized when there's competition around. And I even have you guys go to page 75, which we talked about. Okay, specialist versus generalist. Know the difference here. Specialist, like it's written there, is typically on an island. Okay, because they're specialized in their one thing. Versus a generalist, okay, think of like a rat or a mongoose. Like they can eat a lot of things, they can live in a lot of places. Okay, you can see right there on the bottom, organisms vary in the breadth of their niches. A species with a narrow breadth and thus very specific requirements is said to be a specialist. They need to live in a specific place with a specific amount of moisture, specific amount of sunlight, and so on. One with broad tolerances, a jack of all trades, able to use a wide variety of resources, is a generalist. All right, know the difference between the two of them. All right, make sure to leave questions for yourself and your classmates to discuss.